I talked to Ben Johnson before Thursday morning's practice, and he said the biggest difference he notices is that there's more confidence and swagger around here than there's ever been before. Johnson told me there's a sense that we have a standard, it's a high standard, and if we don't hold ourselves to it, we're all going to be pissed off.
That just sounds like the Lions, doesn't it? All right, biggest moves they made this season. We talked about what the Bucs were doing. Well, the Lions, they extended their own players. They lock up Jared Goff. They lock up Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell, all to long-term deals. They add DJ Reader and Marcus Davenport. They bolster that defensive line. They draft a couple of quarterbacks in the draft, Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw. That could have been perhaps addressing their biggest need of the offseason, a guy who's always high on the Detroit Lions. Yes, looking at you. You've been there. Listen, you were preaching it all along.
He didn't do
they
much.
come so.
He didn't do much there.
What?
He been there, but he was just visiting.
Yeah.
He's a legend there. He's a legend.
Was telling us.
Yeah, sure
you were telling us. How do they get back to the Super Bowl? How do they?
Stupid, man. Oh my gosh.
Lions legend. That is
go back home.
Well, that is how we should introduce Dan for now.
Yes.
Lions legend. Dan.
Maybe not for a good reason.
Yes.
Maybe not for a good reason.
In somebody's mind.
I think really, we just gave a graphic of some of like the really important names, certainly departures, but some of the additions. I think the biggest addition is going to be a full offseason healthy Jameson Williams. I'm nitpicking for the Detroit Lions here. If I had to find one thing that I guess was a flaw of their offense last year was it didn't have vertical speed. And Ben Johnson, who's their offensive coordinator, who they're lucky to keep, one of the things that stands out about his offense is it looks a lot like Kyle Shanahan's. When Kyle, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur's offenses, when they have someone who can go down the field, it takes the offense to a different level. Because the defense can't shrink as much anymore, and then the play action's even bigger. And so you can either throw the ball downfield or get some of those really big chunks in the play action game. So if Jameson could stay healthy and kind of be what they envisioned him to be 2 years ago when they drafted him in the first round with his speed, man, it just changes so much of the explosive element and the chunk offense that they can get in their play action game.
Yeah, to your point, they become 3-level. Great running game, Amon-Ra and Laporta work in the middle of the field. It felt right because I've been on vacation.
You put a little flair
and then
on that
obviously with Jameson. But I like similar in the same vein of what Tampa did this offseason. We're getting Penei Sewell signed, Amon-Ra St. Brown, extending Jared Goff. I thought those were big moves just for the direction of where the Detroit Lions has been going for a few years. I'm going to also tell you this, man. Aiden Hutchinson has gotten helped out tremendously by Marcus Davenport coming over from the Saints. Because last year, we sat here week in and week out talking about, man, if they could just get after the quarterback. If they could just create that pressure outside of Aiden Hutchinson, they got going a little bit from the interior with a game. But Marcus Davenport is another one of those big, long defensive ends that creates a lot of havoc from the outside. I think he's going to be one of those guys that take this defense to another level.
See, you bring up Davenport. And I think of DJ Reader.
And
had DJ Reader been healthy during free agency, he got hurt there at the end of last season against the Minnesota Vikings. Had he been healthy, he would have been one of the top free agents
100%.
available. And Detroit got him at a discount because he was hurt. He was damaged goods. But if he's healthy and he's a force on that defense, you got Davenport and DJ Reader to combine with Aiden Hutchinson to make what was a tough defense that much tougher and to raise this team's hopes even more. And I asked Lions legend Dan Orlovsky, has this city ever been more excited for a Detroit Lions city than this?
No, I mean, this is real. I mean, this is the best team that they have had in well over 25, close to 30 years. It's real. They're a NFC favorite. Them in San Francisco are what we know in the NFC.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with obviously everything they said. There's just a few other points that I really, really want to emphasize. First off, having the continuity of coordinators, both offensively and defensively, is huge. Huge. A lot of times when we see a lot of these teams where it's close, but no Super Bowl, we oftentimes see a team then kind of take a step back, or they're not able to recapture what they had just done in the season before. And a lot of times that happens because you lose coordinators, right? The coaching staff kind of gets turned over because those guys all get promoted. They get other jobs, whatever it may be. They can become head coaches, or they just go to different teams entirely because they don't think that they're going to be able to get to the next level within the organization. And that then matters. You don't have that continuity. Now these coordinators get to both grow with not only the coaching staff, which really matters, but then as well as the players. They understand the personnel better. They actually know what needs to be done. They know how to grow and evolve both offensively and defensively. And to me, that just cannot be understated. Cannot be understated. And it was interesting to hear them talk about how they have to kind of be able to go, more of these chunk plays or go a little bit more vertical and down the field. And the truth is that kind of was the difference maker a little bit against the 49ers, right? The big play with Ayuk ended up being a big, massive play. Now, I think that was kind of a fluke play because that ball easily could have not happened the way it did, but it does show the importance of how a play like that can really swing the momentum of the game. Because I'm also a firm believer that the Lions lost that game rather than the 49ers beating the Lions. And the way how I look at it is like, well, then this is a Super Bowl team. This is a team that's clearly good enough to be in the Super Bowl, and dare I even say win the Super Bowl. I think they would have had an amazing chance outside of them potentially getting just really outcoached by, say, an Andy Reid, which is definitely possible because it is Andy Reid. I really think that the Lions could have won it all last season. So the key is to not try to change too much of what made you special last season. Is not this feeling where you're like, we weren't good enough. You just made some bad decisions last year, is the way how I look at it. And a couple things that were just really unlucky, right? It's just the way how the football gods treated the Lions last year. It wasn't just because, you were outcoached, poor execution, this, that, and the third. That involves some of it, right? I do think Dan Campbell was outcoached a little bit, but the team was good enough to kind of get past that. And it just didn't happen that way. So I don't look at the Lions as just not being good enough. There's other teams that were there last year that don't end up winning a Super Bowl. Maybe they win a playoff game or two, but then it's just clear that they're just not good enough, right? They just truly don't have the ability to execute when it matters. Dallas Cowboys, perfect example. The Eagles at the time, perfect example. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, perfect example. I'm trying to think of any other teams. But yeah, no. So to me, that's not where the Lions are. So that's why it's such a luxury to not only have all the key returning pieces on the field, but then also the coaching staff as well. And then the core pieces that you have are also at a point where they're still learning and growing and getting better. So just the continuity of those big key pieces, they're going to just get better just because they're just more experienced. They're a little bit older. They're going to be a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, a little bit smarter. They're going to understand the game better. They're going to have a better idea on what it takes to win. And now they actually have like true, pure playoff experience, which also matters tremendously. The moment was probably ever so slightly too big for the Lions last season, ever so slightly, not a lot, ever so slightly, and that's not going to happen this year. They're going to be ready. They're going to be focused. They believe that they are capable of winning a Super Bowl. While last season, I think you have to convince yourself. Last season, since none of these guys have really been there except for Goff, it's like you have to keep convincing yourself, we could do this, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. This season is, I know we can do this. It's just different. It's a different level of confidence. Just knowing something rather than trying to convince yourself of something. It really matters. And then I think they've also upgraded on defense, which I think is going to help them tremendously. And that's just, when you have such a high-powered offense like the Lions do, when you can have a great defense, it can just be game, set, match. You're now like blowing teams out, or you're constantly playing with the lead. It just changes your whole game plan entirely. It changes how you call your offense entirely. This is a perfect example of this is the 22 Eagles when their defense was high flying. The way that they were able to call games, it was just like game, set, match. They were able to go for the jugular game after game after game. That wasn't, and then when you look at what happened in 23 for the Eagles, a lot of issues happened, but their defense wasn't as good, and that changes everything. That changes how you're going to start calling these games. It changes how these games unfold. So I think also upgrading a defense is going somewhat slightly overlooked or underlooked for what is going to make the Lions a true Super Bowl contender. So they're obviously definitely one of my top teams that I think are absolutely have a Super Bowl run. Because it's funny because the question says, can the Lions get to the Super Bowl? And it's like, it's like an insane I know we have to just kind of ask those questions because it's just kind of like, hey, we're going to talk about the Lions and we just need some sort of question or a sentence to get us started. And it's like I just want to scream, like, are you out of your mind? Like, how are you even going to ask that question? Can the Lions get to the Super Bowl? Yes. Can the Lions win the Super Bowl? Yes. That's probably a better question technically, because of course they can get to the Super Bowl, because I think the Lions have measurably gotten better. And I'm not so sure if some of these other teams have measurably gotten better. Lions fans don't want to hear this. I think the Lions have gotten better just because they're a little bit more older, more mature. But in terms of like the 49ers haven't gotten better. They're just going to be who they are. They're going to be a great team. And can the Lions be a difference maker against them? I guess technically I think that the Eagles got better, but the Eagles last season ended very, very poorly, that they naturally do have a question mark of like, well, what will they look like? So I just think that the Lions are arguably the best team in the NFL that from last season that got better. Probably the Chiefs. You could probably make the argument that they legitimately got better, but outside of really those two teams, I'm failing to see what other teams like demonstratively got better. And I just see that the Lions have most likely taken a big step forward. So I'm really excited to see how this all unfolds. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think the Lions can get to the Super Bowl? Do you think the Lions can win the Super Bowl? What do you think this season looks like for them? Or do you think that they're going to take kind of a step back and it's just going to be, kind of difficult to recapture what they had last season? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so that you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.